Hey everyone, if you're still watching, there might be one or two of you. You never know. Um, Here I am again after 8 months, I think, uh, since I last made a video. So it says on my channel anyway. It's Throwback Thursday or Throwback Tuesday or whatever. Except it's Wednesday. So to confuse people a bit, I'm in the room where I began making videos here um, 11 years ago. Um, Older, but none the wiser. And, you know, if you're tuning in, welcome back. Um, why did I decide to make a video again? I wasn't, like, I'm still not really sold on this concept, but um, for many reasons. So I was sort of disconnected from the VC, whatever that means. VC means different things to different people. For me, VC meant, the people that I started with, all that, all these years ago, um, and with whom I still very much I'm in contact. Um, I've got lots of friends that I've made from back in those early days of the VC that we still talk on a daily basis on groups on WhatsApp and share records and stuff. I'll mention a few names in a second when I pull out some records. But by and large, for me, I was sort of disconnected from the you know the new VC, whether the new people, whether I don't know who they are, and so I stopped watching videos for a while, and recently I started watching again, mainly due to Alan, Static Traveler. If you're watching this, Alan, um, your two naughty puppets, Penge and Derek, they just really kill me. Like, it's the most fun I've had watching a video in a long time. That video on audio files is 100% pure gold and so true as well. Um, and the one on the vinyl orchard, my god, I laugh so hard watching this. You have no idea. Anyway, I just want to say, if you're watching this, Alan, keep up the good work. That is the most comedy I've seen. Like, it's the biggest load of. It's fun. It's just, it cracks me up. Anyway, so I started watching again, and I just sort of started watching a few people here and there, and rediscovering who is who a little bit. Um, and one of the greatest joys of, and that's really the main reason I'm coming back here to make a video too. The greatest joy with record collecting or music collecting at large. I mean, you see, it's not just records. I mean, the snobbery of records is, I'll never get over it. But the one of the greatest things is that you can share music with people. There's no point, um, discovering cool stuff and just keeping it to yourself. For me, that you know, the hunting and gathering music and the discovering and the enjoying is incomplete unless you can just share it with other people. That's just, I think that's the normal path, and that's what I've been doing for many many years now, and I still do it in real life with friends that come here to my house, and we have listening sessions. Now here in Melbourne, obviously you know, COVID hasn't really been a thing all this year. I mean, not really. We've been pretty much free, and I've been to lots of gigs, and it's not what it is in Europe or in America, or we you know we've got practically zero COVID here, so it's kind of you know um, good to gather and to go out and just see some good live music. So I'm talking, and you think this is boring or something. If it's boring, just you can switch me up. You have the power. Um, I haven't done this for a while as well, so babbling is just going to be part of this show here. So like with that in mind, with starting rewatching some videos, coming across some interesting music YouTubers, and also reviving my interest for sharing music. I thought, just make a video, and I'll start with, I always show 20 records or thereabouts in those Revolutions installments, and that's what I've done. I've just picked 20 records that I've been sort of playing a bit recently or in the past few months. Or, I mean, I had a lot of trouble choosing things to show you because I thought, I just wanted to really show a cross section of things that I've really been enjoying. But you know, whatever I didn't show you today, I'll show you next time, if there's a next time. Who knows? So I'll start with some. These are the first few records are current records. It's records from 2021, because I mean it's always been my philosophy in a way that as much as I love the 70s and the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, yeah, and so on, I also don't want to be one of these people who just buys old music. I want some good current music as well in my collection, But I don't want a million new releases, but just some nice key new releases that will be future classics. I think that's how I view it, like I'll just buy a record with the mindset of, in 10 years or 20 years, if I'm still alive, we'll still enjoy this, and it's been pretty much a case from records that I bought in the 2000s that I still play nowadays. I think, anyway, just a personal thing. I don't want to get stale with music listening. I want new stuff. There are people who just love, showing, their Beatles collection or AC/DC or whatever they're, that's the music that they've, been, this sort of nostalgia aspect, and that's fine. People can do whatever they want, but for me, I'm just really, I need to be excited by new things as well. So, first record I'm going to show you is the most recent Madlib Sound Ancestors. It's Madlib collaborating with Kieran Hebden, the Fortet, as he's known. Two of my favorites, two of my favorite modern artists, I would say. I can. There's 4 or 5, recent artists that I've really, really, put very highly on my sort of musical pedestal, like Fortet, Floating Point, who I'll talk about in a second, and people like Niels Fram as well, in a different style of music also. But these two are just incredible. Madlib is probably the best producer on the face of the earth nowadays. He's a hip hop producer. Everybody knows Madlib. I don't need to introduce him. And on this, they do a sort of instrumental hip hop. What I like about this is the samples that they've chosen, and notably they're sampling, for example, the Young Marble Giants on this, which, Searching for Mr. Right is sampled on this. That's an interesting, like, it's not something that you would hear on a normal hip hop record. So it's instrumental hip hop. There's no vocals. Now with this record, what happened was I pre-ordered it because of the names on it, and I sort of got it, played it a couple of times, filed it in my shelves, and then I had this urge of rediscovering it a couple of months later, and I played it heaps, and I really, really, really like this record, and it just doesn't mean it's going to connect with you necessarily, but another recent record, and this was a gift from my good friend Tony. He used to be known in the VC as Mr. Fadboy 79 back in the day. If you can still remember Tony, then we'll give him a shout out. Tony is someone that I've met in real life in New York, and is someone that I talk to almost daily we have a little record forum or a little private chat on WhatsApp, and we just talk and talk about all sorts of records. And he sent me this. This is this is Joshua Abrams and the Natural Information Society. This is the most recent record. They've released a slew of records, 4 or 5 or 6 records, and this is a band that delves in sort of a drony kind of Eastern infused, drony music with So Joshua Abrams plays the gimbri, which is this kind of a string instrument there. You can see. Sorry, I'm not very eloquent today. It's the first time I do this again. I pride myself on describing records what they sound like, but today it's not working. Anyway, and you've got some harmonium on this, some bass clarinet. So the effect is a very sort of Eastern sounding jam session, and they've got Evan Parker, the legend saxophonist, improvising on 4 sides. This was, I think, mastered by Kevin Gray, of all people. So it's a really nice sounding record. And so I really, really love this, and I really highly recommend this. The Natural Information Society. I don't think I need to write this. If you can't understand my English, you must be deaf. Another modern record, a record that I've got recently from a local store, is this record by a band called Joby. I think, I don't know if it's there. Joby. J-A-U-B-I. And Joby is a multicultural band featuring Tenderlonius, the English flautist who is in a band called Ruby Rushton, if you know your UK jazz. And he's kind of he's got a finger in every pie. Tenderlonius, he collaborates with lots of people, and with this he collaborated with a bunch of musicians from Pakistan. This was recorded in Lahore, the capital of Pakistan, and as a result, what you've got there is like a Eastern jazz session. Improvised, everything is improvised. It's really beautiful. It's really trance-inducing jazz. It's beautiful. So it's a melding of British jazz and Pakistani jazz. And you have on it's on Astigmatic Records, which is a label from Poland, I believe. So it's English and Pakistani musicians released on the Polish label. And you've got tabla, drums, tabla, flute, obviously. Tenderlonius plays the flute, some Fender Rhodes, some guitar. It's a beautiful trip, this. I very highly recommend this record. Joby. This video is going to last 6 hours if I don't continue. Now, it's a local record that I really love, really, really love. Now, for starters, check out the sleeve. It's just a thing of beauty. This girl is a Polish, I think Polish-born but Melbourne-based pianist. Her name is Katarzyna Wiktorski, and the EP is called From a Distance. And what you've got here is basically a string quartet with a jazz band. So you've got sax, bass, drums, piano, and a string quartet. So 2 cellos and 2 violins. This record is absolutely fantastic. It's a phenomenal piece of chamber jazz. Okay, so how can I put it? If you think of things like Keith Jarrett meets, meets a string orchestra. That, if that makes any sense, or this kind of ECM sound, but beautiful and classy, very refined. I was lucky enough to see Katarzyna play live at the Jazz Lab in Melbourne um, a couple of months ago on a Saturday afternoon, and she was bewitching. She was just, the band was amazing, the sax player was amazing. Yeah, unfortunately, this is completely out of print, and you can't get a copy, but you could probably listen to it on Bandcamp if you wanted to hear it. It's not impossible to hear it. Here's another modern record from this. Oh, and I must say, the Katarzyna Witkowska Melbourne record, it was all recorded in lockdown in 2020 in isolation. So everyone's recorded their part separately and then they put it together, which is amazing. Here is a lovely modern record. This is Tumani Diabate, the Malian kora player, legend. And Tumani Diabate teams up with the London Symphony Orchestra, like Floating Points, the record everybody has probably, which I'm not going to show you today, but I'm going to talk about Floating Points. This is a beautiful melding of two very different styles of music, Malian music, traditional Malian music, and sort of Western symphonic music. But it works really well, and they do this really beautiful cover of Ennio Morricone. I think it's the Good and Bad and the Ugly, or on the kora and with the string orchestra in the background. It's just totally fantastic. I mean, I've been a big fan of Tumani Diabate for many years, and I think I really had to pick this up because it's beautiful. And so, since I'm talking about Floating Points, he obviously did the Promises record that everybody's raving about it. And personally, I really love the record. I love the fact that he teamed up with Pharoah Sanders. I really love everything about it. It's a beautiful ambient night record. But for me, I'm going to be honest, the best record that Floating Points ever made is this one. Is Elenia. And I know you may agree or disagree with me, and it's fine, it's okay. You can disagree with me. But I think this is still, in many ways, superior in the sense of how together it is, and how the record he made with the Promises London Symphony Orchestra is at times a little bit, it's very abstract and very ambient, and it takes a certain mood to listen to it. This you can listen to at any time of the day, and it sounds fantastic. So if you haven't heard, this is the first long player by Floating Point, Sam Shepard, Manchester born pianist, nerdy record collector like you've never seen before. Massive. He's actually his Late Night Tales is one of the best installments that they've ever done. He's clever. I mean, really. And so this is a beautiful record, and this reminds me a lot of Talk Talk. It's like an instrumental, sort of progressive electronic version of Talk Talk. That's what I hear, and that's just segues me into, I've been listening a lot to Laughing Stock and to Spirit of Eden recently. So if you don't know Talk Talk, stop this video. Stop what you're doing. Stop watching videos on YouTube. Just go and listen to Talk Talk. I don't think I'm going to talk about a more important band in this installment today. I don't know. So Talk Talk, English band, made 5 albums, all worth hearing. The first one maybe not so essential. The party's over. It's just okay. But It's My Life is a beautiful pop album with some killer singles. It's My Life, It's a Shame, Dum Dum Girl. Then the follow-up, which is, I think, maybe my favorite Talk Talk record, Spirit of Eden, is just completely amazing pop music of a different sort of level. What was done at the time in England It's so progressive as a pop album. And then those two, Spirit of Eden and Laughing Stock, where the sort of the burgeoning, um, you know, it was burgeoning post rock. Really, I mean, it's just like post rock at the start. This is fantastic, and it's very sort of subtle, and yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful record. Um, I've been on this channel in the past. I've been talking a lot about mild life. I mean, nobody has repped mild life more than I have. I don't think anybody has, especially because I'm from here. I'm from the mild life town. So, it's very important for me to, you know, I don't claim to know anything about these guys. I just love their music. And my life made 2 records so far, and this is the second record. And this was kind of written down to it because the first record, Phase, the orange record, is so great and it's so dynamic, and it's kind of like a blending of crowd rock and jazz and psychedelic pop and everything. So out there that you know maybe people would tend to write off the second record as being sort of derivative, and I must say I was one of these people as well. I just didn't grab me, but I started playing this, and I really love this record. I think like Rare Air or Vapor is such a great song, and the closing track, Automatic, the title track, it's beautiful. It reminds me a little bit of late '90s French touch electronic music, but with sort of a driving pop sensibility. Man, 19 minutes. Woof. I hope you're you're in for the long run. No, I've got 10 more records or so. I mean, you can stop anytime you want. Um, I picked up. This is not a, a record from this year, but it was reissued this year. I picked up the beautiful reissue of Belladonna. Ian Carr, as you probably know, Ian Carr is the obviously was in the Carr Rendell band. Sort of like early UK jazz from the 60s. I think those Carr Rendell records are just essential into really jazz collection. The beautiful Shades of Blue, Dusk Fire, beautiful records. And then he formed Nucleus, which is more of a jazz fusion band, sort of progressive jazz fusion. And these records are also essential, in my opinion. And this is one of his records he made around the time of Nucleus, and it's kind of like Inner Sun Way-esque. If I can give you a description of this, Belladonna is very, very understated, like beautiful sort of spectral jazz, cosmic jazz. Really, really, really nice. Continuing with records that I've been playing a lot recently, over the past few months, and that record is the latest Tom York solo album, Anima. Came out in 2000 and maybe 20, right? Or 2020? Am I right? I can't remember. It's his latest record anyway. You can look it up. And I've always got a favorite Radiohead record of the moment. Always, because Radiohead basically one of my favorite bands. Really, I mean, I say this without any restraint. I love Radiohead. Right? Maybe not Pablo Honey. Maybe not the King of Limbs. But the other records are just absolutely. I mean, the King of Limbs is a good record. Don't get me wrong, but it's not one that I play often. But Moonshine Pool and Kid A and Hail to the Thief, to name but a few. And it's astounding to me that Radiohead they're capable of putting out this amazing music consistently, and still Tom York has got inspiration to do these things on the side. I mean, this man is you know is he ever tired? It's just when I listen to this, I think to myself, if I could produce one record like this, I'd be that my life would be complete, you know, let alone like 10 of them. I really love the Eraser as well, his debut record. I think it's a very, very underrated record. But this is fantastic. The electronics on this is very ambient, it's very atmospheric. The first few songs, they just do it for me. What was the first song? Traffic, I think it's called, from memory. Traffic something. Traffic. Um, and the first like 3 or 4 songs, they just set the tone. It's an amazing record. As I said, I'm not very eloquent today. I'll get better with time, but I really recommend Anima. Um, my good friend Jack, from he's never been on VC or anything. He makes comments sometimes. Uh, Jack uh, Jack Sunday is known as he's known, I think, on Instagram. Um, he, we just talk every day. We talk on WhatsApp, and we call each other. We talk about records, about life, mostly about life. And sometimes we send each other records. And he decided to send me this. Why? Because this record was reissued recently by a shop in the Paris flea market, and that's round the corner from his house, from his apartment in Paris. And he knows the guy who reissued this, so he just thought he'd send me a copy. This is Nissa Music. Uh, Nissa Music. That's what the band is called. And Nissa Music is, you can see it says music there very faintly in red. They're a collective from the mid 1980s from Paris, and they sort of rehearsed in one of the Paris concert rooms, and sort of started sort of forming this tribal, ambient, minimalist, sort of John Hassel, Midori Takada. That's the wheelhouse of the music. You've got very, very earthy, very gamelan-like, very beautiful, sort of ethno folk kind of music, like cellos and ouds and congas and tablas and marimbas and Tibetan gongs, and geez, this is gorgeous, absolutely fantastic record. Very, very meditative and something that you can really get into. Side 2 especially is killer. I just love side 2, like the violin and cellos on this. Just, and so since thank you, Jack, again, I love this. And since I'm talking about John Hassel, because it's very John Hassel-esque, and the poor, no, we almost die one day. I'll say the poor bastard died last week or whatever, and so we've been playing John Hassel day and night, not day and night, but a lot. This is Paris Spot on ECM, a great record. I mean, that or Dream Theory in Malaya, or they're great records. All these early records are worth seeking out. They're very, very good. This one has got a lot of, a good supporting cast. Brian Eno is there. Michael Brook, the Canadian guitar player. Richard Horowitz, who also made some great ambient records in his own name. Jean-Philippe Riquiel, he's on keyboards there. So it's a beautiful, beautiful record on ECM. It's an ECM record. So very highly recommended. From 1986. What am I saying? So yes, John Hassel, some beautiful tribal ambient, very, very pulsating tribal ambient. And since I'm on ambient, I'll continue with a record from last year, which I'm loving. And we're talking about a Nicholas Jar, one of his latest releases called Synesis. That's how you spell it there. See there? at the top, Nissa's. That's the name of the record. Nicholas Jar is a Chilean music producer, electronic music producer, who is based in New York. He records under the alias Dark Side. Fantastic. The first Dark Side record is a masterpiece. Against All Logic, I urge you to check out the first Against All Logic record. It's called 2013 to 2017 to 2019 or something like that. It's got 2 years. That is just top notch house music, really beautiful music. And so this is fantastic too. It's an ambient record. It's very, yeah, it's a great late night record from last year. It's beautiful. I've been listening to a ton of classical music in the past maybe 6 months. Classical music, extravaganza, left, right, and center. And I was talking to my friend Anders, who used to make videos under the name Anders in Stockholm. And we're still, again, another person that I'm friends with. I've talked about Tony and Jack, and I'm talking about Anders now. And I'll talk about Anders a bit more in a second. But Anders is a big jazz and classical fan, very, very, very knowledgeable about those things. If you old enough in the VC, you know who Anders is, and he has his own label as well. Anders, I think you'll watch this eventually. So hello, Anders. But we talk face to face anyway. It sort of inspired me talking to Anders to revisit my classical music collection. I have, I don't know, maybe 200 classical records. It's not very many, really, in the scheme of it. I've got lots of classical CDs as well, and to revisit things. And at the moment, I am in love with the cello concert by Antonin Dvorak, whatever his name is, Dvorak, Dvorak, as people say. There's many different renditions of these, and this Pierre Fournier, directed by George Sell, is one of the better versions of. I also would recommend the Miroslav Rostropovich version, which is fantastic as well in its own way. The first part of this concerto is mind-blowing. I think it gives me, it just taps into emotions in me that are as strong as when I listen to A Love Supreme or some of my favorite records. This is just really, really visceral, this music. It takes you, and I would say that with my classical music listening, I tend to either listen to string quartets. I'm a big fan of Schubert, notably. Lots of string quartets by Schubert, and some concertos, which, if you don't know about classical music, is when you have an ensemble, an orchestra, and there's a lead instrument. So you can have a piano concerto or a cello concerto, and they have the solo role in the a bit of technical and concertos or string quartets are probably my favorite things, and obviously solo piano, Chopin and Satie and all sorts of things. But talking about Anders has a label in Sweden, in Stockholm. It's called Signal and Sound Records, and he put out his own record under that label, and then he put out seven other records from local free jazz musicians from Stockholm, and he sent me all of his records because I wanted them, because I thought they were worth having. Signal and Sounds, if you can see that record, and I'm choosing to spotlight this one, which is the latest is released. It's called the Oya Sextet Live, and I'll just read the hype sticker out of the back so that you can see sort of sound that you've got. With this debut album, Oya Sextet celebrates music by South African exile musicians such as Dudu Pukwana, Chris McGregor, Louis Moholo, Mongezi Feza, and Johnny Diani. So if you know those musicians, they were in a band called the Blue Notes, the Brotherhood of Breath, the most essential South African jazz band ever, really. Township riffs, swing, and gospel come together in this cult repertoire. Very, very, very cool double LP live recording of South African music done by young local jazz musicians. Fan freaking tastic, amazing, amazing record. And so it's one of them, and I mean, I could maybe next time I'll talk about other ones, but Enders, thank you so much, brother. I know we talk all the time anyway, so you know how much I appreciate this. And if you want those records from Enders, then he has some stock left. So you know, if you're interested in buying from him, just let me know, and we can hook you up somehow. if you're really interested, he's put out seven or 8 records, and they're all fantastic. They're all Swedish free jazz. Something different now, some Japanese jazz, and I've been really digging on Ryo Fukui recently. He's made 2 or 3 or 4 records. He's a self-taught pianist from Osaka, Sapporo. And this is the live record he made called Letter from Slow Boat, called Slow Boat because of the jazz club, the Slow Boat Jazz Club that he was playing in. It's a jazz trio. It's very reminiscent of someone like Bill Evans, like a Bill Evans trio record. Also, you know, a little bit Keith Jarrett in places, but I think more like a Bill Evans. This is a beautiful live record. I highly recommend Scenery, the red record, and even more Melodream, which is the record with the sea and the bird on it, which are often seen in the YouTube algorithm, especially Scenery. But in my opinion, and I've said this on this channel before, I think Melodream is actually a better record than Scenery. And this is a summation of all these things. It's a beautiful record. Here is a record by, what's his name? Hosan Yamamoto, who plays the bamboo flute. This record is called The Silver World. The Silver World. It doesn't really say it anywhere. Well, it says it in Japanese, if I could speak it. That probably says Hosan Yamamoto Silver World. Maybe it's the opposite. We have no idea. So you've got Hosan Yamamoto on bamboo flute. Here's the man. And we have the participation of Gary Peacock on bass and Hiroshi Murakami on drums. And I thought for a second, Haruki Murakami, one of my favorite writers, maybe my favorite modern writer actually. I've read so many Murakami books. If you like music, which you do because you're watching this, I highly recommend that you read Murakami's novels. They're full of music references. He's a massive jazz and classical nerd, so he's always got something. Kafka on the Shore is a very highly recommended book by Murakami, as well as the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, which I think is probably my favorite Murakami book. But they're all good. Men Without Women is a very touching book. A book that resonated a lot with me personally. So this is a beautiful traditional jazz, very soft, very, I was talking about in a certain way before, but yeah, in a certain way, but Japanese. Here is a fabulous record on CTI. It's Paul Desmond on CTI Skylark with Ron Carter on bass, Jack DeJohnette on drums, Bob James on keyboards, and Ralph McDonald on guitar. No, on percussion, sorry, I'm talking nonsense. And we have Gabo Zabo on guitar. Gabo Zabo. Look at this beautiful So Paul Desmond, as you know, because you're not a fool, Paul Desmond is the sax player, was the sax player in the Dave Brubeck quintet. You know, he plays that fantastic, line on take five and so on and so forth on Rondo à la Turque. Um, this is a fabulous CTR release. It's just a groovy, kind of reminiscent of the Dave Brubeck group, I will say, because of the tone, but some beautiful, beautiful soloing by Gabo Zabo. The soloing is exquisite. If you like this kind of mid-70s jazz, I mean, CTI is hit and miss, really. I mean, there's some great CTI and some very average CTI. This is great CTI. Skylark. Um, like every man and his dog, I've been buying some tone poets. Of course, I have. I have about 10 of them or something. Beautiful records. And I was thinking, let's just show one of them today. And I think so far one of my favorite is being Oblique, by Bobby Hutcherson. I was a bit hesitant to start with because it is a jazz quartet, but there's no horn on it. There's no sax or trumpet. It's just vibes, and you can see Herbie Hancock is obviously on piano, and then you've got Joe Chambers on drums, and you've got Albert Stinson on bass. And I thought, and you start the record, and it's a little bit sort of elevator music esque. The first few notes, you think, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but then, then Bobby Hutcherson and Herbie Hancock sort of bounce off each other, and you end up with one of the most compelling jazz records that I've heard this year. Really, really, really stunning record. I very highly recommend this. I think it's a little bit out of print these days, but they'll print them again. I mean, this is, to me, this is a level of care in making records that is just so incredibly, enviable. Like you've got, the jacket, you've got the photos, you've got the pressing is amazing. It's mastered correctly. It's everything you want in a record. You pay the money, of course, but it's worth the money. Sometimes you pay a lot of money for a record and it's pretty shoddy, pretty crappy, but this is really worth getting. And I think, look, I've bought about 10 of them, 10, 12 of them. The Dexter Gordon One Flight Up it's a very, very nice record. And I've also been buying some of the Blue Note Classic. And the latest one I bought this last weekend actually. It's the Cool Strutting by Sonny Clark, one of the most classic Blue Notes. I don't need to talk about this. I mean, some people would find this a little bit safe as a jazz piece, but I think it's got its name for a reason, and this is of the same quality really as the Tone Poets. The sound-wise. I mean, the jacket is a bit, but I will say though, a little bit of complaint about the Tone Poets. They take a lot of space. They do. And one last record is a Brazilian classic, which I got a few months ago. Manduca. Sleeve face me there. No, almost. Yeah, I could pull it off. I don't quite have that sort of vibrant head of hair, but Manduca is a Brazilian psych folk singer, and he just made. I think he made 2 or 3 records, and they're all kind of classic and very hard to obtain. This is very, very thick. It's one of these instances where you can't put the record back in. The sleeve is so hard you can't put the record back inside. It's oversized, but yet you can't do anything. And it's fantastic psych folk. I mean, take a listen to it. very, very, very cool record. And originals of these are just, they're hard to come by. And as they're from Brazil, often they're, you know, to find one that sounds really pristine. And this has been remastered really well, actually, this one, this issue here. So there you go. That's all I've got for you today. Maybe a bit long, but if you stay that long, you know, why not? I hope you are well. I try to reduce the size of these, but I haven't done this for a while, so just keep that in mind. All right, everyone, talk to me. It's not worth doing if people don't talk. And take care. Cheers.